Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second Toxic Tuesday happy hour on this channel. Toxic because we are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of sound money, which will improve the situation for mankind. I love the sound of that. We have a very special edition. I'm super excited. We have what I call Bitcoin legend Matt Odell in the pub today. With that sound, I need to know, what are you drinking?
So I guess I'm doing like a UTXO consolidation today because I'm finishing up 2 bottles. So this one is Tamdu 12 Scotch whiskey, single malt.
That sounds good. So what are you up to in the Bitcoin space these days? What's happening in your part of the Bitcoin world?
Just trying to stay sane while this price runs up. Bull markets are fucking insanity, and I honestly I think we're just getting started. I think kind of feels like we're in 2016 right now.
Absolutely, totally agree. And the fun thing is, I know I said this earlier today, but not everyone saw it earlier today. That I've been waiting for this and saying it would happen for a couple of years, right? Ever since we're in the bear market, I said, look, there's going to be a halving. We're going to go through this again. Now we are here. We're just getting the confirmation that here goes another halving bull run. And even though we're still below a 2017 price, it's just a confirmation that we're going to see hundreds of thousands of dollars, I believe.
I mean, I'm down. We got to do it in sats, right? So $100,000 is 10 sats per dollar, or 10 sats percent.
10 sats percent. All right.
Yeah, is so $100,000. That's what we're aiming for.
Right. I like it. So you've been around for a long time. You have a lot of experience and history in the space. What's your expectations to the bull run?
No one knows.
That is true.
You just keep stacking. You just don't over fucking think it. Like, everyone wants to be cute. Everyone thinks they can outsmart it. Maybe I'll stack less now. I'll stack more when it goes down a little bit. Maybe it's going to hit the all-time high and go down. You mentioned we're near all-time high. We passed the market cap all-time high already, and for all intents and purposes, we're at all-time high. We were barely at the prices we were at. It was 15 days, just straight craziness in 2017 when we were in these areas. I mean, I did a joke tweet yesterday that a lot of people didn't get, which was McAfee's bubble paradigm tweet from 2017, and just to show the difference of the type of situation we were in. It was just absolute retail craziness, irresponsible, pump and dumpish, blow off top area, which is what happens at the end of every cycle historically. And this is the exact opposite. This is the slow build. Oh, we just got a new block. This is the slow build up where we're just getting started. And it really does feel like the market is healthier this time around, which is one of the things that I tried to drill home during this long bear market is that we need a nice base of Bitcoiners that are responsibly just stacking sats, securing it themselves, using their own node, rather than these degenerate speculative BitMEX traders. And we're always going to have both, but it's important that we have that nice floor set by the sat stackers.
Yeah, the floor set by people who are just taking Bitcoin off the market permanently, basically, at least until infinity. I'm not saying don't use your Bitcoin when it's the only money around. If you want to buy something in the supermarket, if you want to eat, you have to use Bitcoin, because there will be no alternative. There'll be no dirty fiat. That's my opinion. It's going to be gone by the end of this decade. Do you believe in that as well? Will Bitcoin take over, or what's your idea?
I mean, it's the difference between selling and spending, right? Like I think the intention I have is to spend Bitcoin, not to sell Bitcoin. Like I have zero intention to ever sell Bitcoin. It's a one-way street. I'm just converting bad money into good money before everyone else realizes.
Yeah, it's just mind blowing that, and it just shows the slow speed of the word and understanding spreading, that we've Bitcoin's been around for 12 years and still it's kind of a secret that less than 1% of the world understands. 12 years in the information age, and still people can enter today and make a killing purchasing power wise, buying power wise, in my opinion. Can you explain? So I know very few people know about the block clock you have behind you. Can you explain to everyone what's going on?
So this is made by our good friend Rodolfo of CoinKite, famously known for making the open dimes and the cold cards. And he has a more expensive version of this that's about $4,000. That's badass, that I've never been able to justify to purchase. But this is his cheaper version that he just came out with, called the Block Clock Mini, which I think is $300, but it gets cheaper in Bitcoin terms every day that goes on. And it can display whatever I wanted to display. Any stat I wanted to display. I had it on sats per dollar before. You can have like the average fee that's going in, the median fee that's going in per block, the amount of blocks till the mempool clears. Any stat your heart desires, hash rate, you can have it switch on there. And it's super customizable. It's using e-ink. There's a bunch of different e-ink things. And you can set how often it updates. So I have it set to every block. So every time a block comes through, it's going to update us with the new price.
That's so awesome. So it basically, yeah, it can show whatever you want it to show, you're saying. So I have a question though, because there's not that many digits on this clock, and I'm debating with myself, is that a good thing? Because 10 years from now, it'll be such a rarity that you had something that could display such a small number. I believe it's 6 digits, right?
Well,
Or is it a bad thing because it will be unrealistic small price a few
well, yeah.
years
So
from now?
this one will work for 6 digits, right? And I think once we hit $1 million of Bitcoin, that's sat cent parity. That's one sat equals 1 cent, and then we just switch to sats per dollar. And with sats per dollar, the beauty of sats per dollar is it's not number go up, it's number go down. So we actually need less digits as time goes on if we're using sats per dollar. So I don't really think it's an issue. Rodolfo says he's just going to sell us a new one, so we'll see. We'll see there. He is very good about constantly coming out with new hardware that parts me with my money. One thing also that this thing does, which is kind of cool, is Rodolfo CoinKite has these, which I'm wearing on my head, is the open dimes, which is one of my favorite big pieces of Bitcoin hardware. This is the special edition orange ones. If you plug it in to here, you can actually see the balance and fund the open dime. So like the open dime is like a little piece of Bitcoin hardware where it's a bearer asset. You load it up with Bitcoin and then you can give it to someone in person, and they know you don't have the private key. They can verify you don't have the private key. I love these for wedding gifts. So I have a shit ton that I always give them for wedding gifts. I was at a wedding last month. It's always great when you give a wedding gift and the price pumps afterwards. Like their gift is up like 50%. It always sucks when it's the opposite, but
So they should be calling you on a monthly basis and say thank you for the new gift, the bigger gift, the extra purchasing power that you just gave me, and you didn't have to do anything.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's the best wedding gift. There's no better gift. But the thing is, sometimes they won't appreciate it. So what I do is I give them something else, and then I give them the open dime in addition to it. Like it's always on top of it, because you don't want to be the guy who everyone's like, oh, he's just a Bitcoin guy. He's just giving me this magic internet money.
Yeah. This is this radical guy again who just keeps talking Bitcoin. And you kind of just like bore people. So how much is this open dime if people out there want to get this and you start using it for presents? We've got Christmas coming up. We've got other holidays coming up.
I believe the black ones come, I think they're $15 for the black, $15 I think you buy them in packs of 3. So I think it's $45 for 3. And then the orange ones are supposedly limited edition. I don't know if he's actually going to stop making them. But those are more expensive, which seems, kind of high, but he did get it as cheap as possible. Like, they have a secure element on them. They're basically like these little one-time use only hardware wallets. And when transaction fees go up, it's actually kind of affordable. They're locked in, like, in terms of what the transaction costs. It'll always cost you $15. It doesn't matter how much you're sending.
Right. So you say when they're one-time use only, I mean, the same open dime can keep being like handed over, checked by the owner, and handed over and checked by the owner. It's just you can't like put more on it or take anything from it, right? Or no, you should be able to take something from it, because how would you
can add Bitcoin to it, but on it, let's see if I can get this on the camera. On it, see right here, it says this hole where it says Bitcoin. Where'd it go? It's the opposite. Bitcoin with the hole. If you poke that hole with the thumbtack, next time you plug this into a computer, it'll show the private key. That's the only way. So the only way to access the Bitcoin, to pull the Bitcoin off, is to destroy the device, to physically change the device, right? And at that point, you can never use it again without like trusting the person. The whole point is that I can load this thing without the private key ever being exposed to me, so the person who receives it doesn't have to worry about me sweeping it behind their back. And I actually made 2 videos, because I give these so much. I made 2 videos on Tales from the Crypt's YouTube video series for our guide series, tftc.tv. And one of them is for you if you want to know how the open dime works for the gift.
I do.
But one is for the recipient of the gift. So if you send them the link, because that's what I send all my friends, you just send them the link, and then when the time comes and they want to redeem the open dime, it'll work them through the process of how to actually access the Bitcoin.
Is this something that is so simple that I can give this to my mother, and when she puts a hole through that and wants to access that private key, will she be able to work out how to move that to another place?
I think so. If she follows my video, it'll be simple enough for her.
Beautiful.
And the cool part is like, I feel like it really, it feels cool. Like, it's like this little like hardware wallet, like this little USB drive that holds Bitcoin, like that. It just feels cool. So I think that's an important, when you're first introducing someone to Bitcoin, it's a really important way to like phone home that this is like future money. Rather than like, download this app, let me scan this QR code, let me do all this stuff. It's like, nah, here's a USB drive. You got some Bitcoin on there. Here's 1 million sats,
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. So it's a little USB. You can just plug it into any Microsoft computer or
any computer. And my guide is agnostic. It's Linux, Mac, Windows, doesn't matter.
Awesome. And so this is great for the using it as a bearer asset and maybe smaller amounts. Although even a small amount today, 1.5 years from now, probably is going to be much more than a smaller amount. But what do you what do you like as a cold storage hardware wallet for the more sort of continuous use? Personally, I heard very good about Coldcard. I haven't used one, but yeah, that's it.
So I'm a full-on CoinKite groupie. Rodolfo's my boy. The only bias I have here is that he's my boy. He has never paid me a cent. If anything, I paid him way too much money. Case in point is the block clock. Like, I didn't get any free hardware from him. So I fucking love the Coldcard. I think it's the best hardware wallet there is. I have a guide for this on my setup. Use coldcard.com. And yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I have like the whole I think the whole set he has is fantastic. He has this, which is, it looks like the open dime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is called the Cold Power. It looks like the open dime, and it's a bare board. You can see everything that's going on. And basically what it is it allows you to use a 9-volt battery, and it turns a 9-volt battery into a battery pack. Let me see if I can capture this.
Right.
You see the light turn on? I can turn on the light, and then you can plug in the USB cable directly into this 9-volt battery. and like it's easier to tell that no funny business is happening, because the thing is, like with battery packs, these USB battery packs nowadays, you buy them, they're manufactured in China. There's like all these different, they have computer chips in them to regulate the power and everything. And it's just like a lot of things are going on. This is just a very simple, straight to the point thing. Then he has this cable that he sells, which is a power only USB cable, because you don't want it to send data. And it's got a magnetic clasp, so it just connects to the Coldcard up here.
Right.
And when you connect it to the computer, it's all through the SD card slot.
Right. So that is an encrypted small SD that you take out, and then you plug it into a computer. And the only thing that can take back is private keys. Like they can't be any malware or anything else.
No, someone in the comments asked me to blink if Rodolfo was holding me hostage.
Okay, now I understand. I was thinking, like, what's going on? Like, I was thinking, am I asking like stupid questions here or something, since you started blinking and laughing? Yeah, what was my question?
Something about the SD card.
Yeah. So the question is, with the Coldcard, where private keys are encrypted on the SD card, as I understand, you take that SD card, you plug it into your computer, you have access to the private keys coming back from the computer to your Coldcard. Okay, you tell me.
The private keys are encrypted on the Coldcard. Okay, the SD card allows you. So what you do is you have a computer app on your computer, or like a phone or something.
Right.
And then they make you construct a transaction. So you have your public key on your computer, right? And your master public key. So you're able to construct transactions, see your balance. That master public key is a privacy risk to you. If someone gets access to that, they can see all your holdings, they can see all your transactions, but it's not a security risk. So you have that on your computer. And with that, you're able to construct transactions. So I can say, I'm going to send you 1 million sats to your address, right? I put that on the SD card, one of those little SD cards, the micro SD cards. Then I plug in I plug my Coldcard into a battery pack, completely offline, put in my PIN to decrypt it, right? With the keypad that I have right up here. And then with the SD card in here, I sign it with my private key. So I have like a partial transaction that says I'm sending from these addresses to this address and this amount of money, and I'm putting that into my SD card. I'm signing it into my Coldcard, and then I'm taking that signed transaction and I'm putting it back in my computer, and then I'm sending it out to the network through the computer. So the idea, the security model is that the private keys never leave the actual Coldcard. And because the Coldcard is never connected to the internet, and because the Coldcard has a secure element, it's supposed to keep your private keys secure, reasonably secure for a $150 device. It gives you like security guarantees that are on the level of very expensive HSMs that like these companies use to protect their private secrets. So there's two things that I think every person, I guess there's three things that the average Bitcoiner is like concerned about when they're controlling their own keys. They're concerned about a software-based hack through the internet. They're concerned about a physical attack where a maid or someone comes in to your house with a gun and like takes your hardware wallet from you. Or a friend or a business coworker who knows where your hardware wallet is, takes your hardware wallet and tries to steal your funds. And then losing them yourself, right? The overwhelming majority of people lose their Bitcoin themselves. Like if you talk about lost Bitcoin, it's you fucked up yourself. You fucked yourself over. So what does Coldcard and other hardware wallets do to solve that? They make it so you have this word phrase, right? You have these 24 words. As long as you keep those 24 words, you're not going to lose your Bitcoin, right? And it's very important that it's offline. That is just 24 words that you can write down onto a piece of paper or like onto steel. CoinKite sells these steel pieces that you can stamp it into steel, because there's all these things that could happen to digital backups. A micro SD card fails, a drive fails. Maybe we have like a solar flare or like an EMP or something, and it knocks out electronics. Like there's all these things that could happen to digital backups. Having a offline non-digital backup is absolutely a huge plus. And it reduces those attack vectors. Now, you do have to worry about if someone gets that. You don't want someone, you have to make sure that that seed is secure in a place where no one's going to get it, because if someone gets it, then they can spend your money. The second thing, right, is what we said, a physical attack, right? And this is where the secure element comes involved. It has a secure element on it. If someone gets this device, they're going to have to, unless they're super sophisticated, and the most recent version of the Coldcard hasn't been broken, but like the MK2 got broken, the previous version got broken by Ledger with like very expensive hardware. They had like $200,000 hardware. They're going to have to guess the pin. And if they fail this pin 13 times, the whole thing just bricks itself. And it's just broken. The last thing, which is the internet vulnerability, the idea is that not only do they have to compromise your computer, but then they have to pass that air gap. They have to like compromise the SD card into your device and then come onto the device and then pull your private keys off, which makes it way, way more difficult, which is why you see recently, like the way these attacks happen usually with hardware wallets is they convince you to put your seed in the computer because they don't want to take that next step. That next step is just too hard for them to take. In the past, what we used to see is everyone just had the software wallets on your computer. You would run Bitcoin Core. You wouldn't use a hardware wallet, or you use like a phone wallet or something. And if you installed an app and it wasn't a valid app, it was a malicious app, then the app just took your Bitcoin. But now, not only do they have to install the malicious app, they'd have to somehow get you to get your secrets off of this device onto the computer.
Right. Wow. Mind-blowing level of security knowledge. I love it. This is really great, Matt. So let me ask you, if people get a hold of these 24-word seeds, you don't have any like passphrases, like I know Trezor has passphrase. There's nothing there. I love the UTXO. What do you call it? Align. You're cleaning up your UTXOs on the bottle side.
Yes. No. So passphrase, right? So what a passphrase is. So now I got old Pulteney.
Right.
The passphrase is. So you have your 24 words, right?
Mm-hmm.
The passphrase is the 25th word, and it's user chosen. The 24 words are chosen by the device. The 25th word is your passphrase. It's chosen by yourself. There's two reasons for the passphrase. The first reason is, let's say the hardware wallet is compromised by you putting in a passphrase, the 25th word, then maybe they can't get your funds, right? Like they give you 24 words that are not actually random. They know them, but the 25th word they don't know. That doesn't really, it's like a bullshit reason for a passphrase, because if you don't have a very secure thing, they can brute force it. What's nice about Coldcard is if you don't trust their random number generator, you can actually, and you can add randomness with dice rolls. So you can just keep rolling dice and adding it to it offline. So even if they were fucking around with the randomness, you can add dice rolls. But the main reason for the passphrase is if someone finds your seed, or if someone is able to pull your private key off the device. On the Trezor, they don't have a secure element, so it's really easy to pull the private key off the device. They also need the passphrase, which isn't stored on the device. So if you use a passphrase on a Coldcard or a Trezor, you sign in with your PIN, and then you also add your passphrase on top of that after the fact every time you use the hardware wallet, because it's not stored on the device. And that does give you some extra benefit. It also gives you plausible deniability because it's an additional wallet. So you can have, like, let's say you have your regular wallet, right? With your 24 words, and that thing has half a Bitcoin on it. But then your real stash, your 3 Bitcoin stash, your real cold stash is in a separate passphrase wallet. If an attacker gets your hardware and they compromise your wallet, they're like, oh, he has a half Bitcoin. They just take it. Right. And they don't realize that there's a 25th word. And if they use the 25th word, they can get the other 3 Bitcoin. They just don't even think to look. So it gives you this like nice plausible deniability, especially if they have like a gun to your head and you hand them this is all the Bitcoin I have. And they might not know. I do think for most people, and I think that a lot of people that are newcomers that might be listening to this, or less technically proficient plebs, are feeling very overwhelmed right now, which is why I don't tell people to use a passphrase at first. Because if we go back to the earlier conversation, the number one way people lose their coins is they lose them themselves. They fuck something up. And with the passphrase, you know, if you store the passphrase with your seed words, it doesn't help you at all.
Right.
And
Makes
so
no sense. Yeah.
right. So what happens is and then if you don't have a very secure passphrase, like it could be brute forced. So what happens is people think of like a secure passphrase and then they forget it, or they have it stored somewhere else and they can't find it, and then they lose access to their coins. So I think in general, like complexity is the enemy here.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that practice makes perfect. I think like a lot of these times when you look at, if you look at people who lose money, it's because they like never use their setups and they're not comfortable with them. And then they make a fuck up when the few times they use it.
Right. Awesome. And what about, so I'm very curious about, and I know a lot of people are about multisig. And yeah, listen, let's not forget the real reason we're here. In reality, this is just a setup for being able to say cheers. I'm doing some Woodford Reserve here from Kentucky. When in Rome, do as the Romans. I'm not in Kentucky, but I'm in US. So having some US whiskey, bourbon whiskey. When using multisig, like how difficult is it to get started? What do you think are the advantages of multisig? What's the general? Yeah, what's the ups and what's the downs of multisig, and how do you do it?
So there's two main benefits of multisig. The first benefit is if Rodolfo tries to fuck you, you can remove that risk if you use a different hardware wallet as well, right? So if you have a Ledger and a Coldcard in a multisig, then both Rodolfo and Ledger would have to fuck you at the same time, right? For that security issue to actually happen to you, or if you had a Trezor and a Coldcard or whatever, right? So one of the main advantages is you reduce the actual supplier risk. The other thing is like if this device gets like intercepted in the mail while it's getting sent to you, right? So if you have multiple devices that you all got in separate packages, or some you got in person, some you got, it reduces the chance for that kind of attack. Now that's not a very common or expected attack that I think like an average person should ever really worry about. It's definitely a concern. It can be mitigated if you use like the dice feature that I said, right? Or a very strong passphrase, even if you are in single sig. And I think just like in most people's trust models, that's not something that they, like threat models, that's not something that they really can mitigate against or should be really thinking about. Like we don't think about like most people that are using an iPhone don't think maybe they should, but they don't think like, oh, what if Apple fucks me? They're just trusting Apple to do it. And Apple probably is fucking them, but they just don't care. So that's one reason. And then the second reason is you can have them in multiple locations. So you can have a common setup for multisig is 3 of 5 keys. So that means you need 3 keys to sign a transaction, 3 keys to spend your Bitcoin out of 5. And you can keep those 5 in different countries, different houses. If you have 5 houses, if you're Michael Saylor, you can keep it in one in each yacht. Yeah. And then an attacker needs to go to each yacht in order to take your Bitcoin.
Right.
And that also helps in cases of like fire and stuff like that. Natural disasters. But you could also just keep multiple backups of a single sig wallet. So I think for most people, as we said earlier, complexity is the enemy here. I think you keep it on the simpler side. Don't overwhelm yourself and get more comfortable with it. And one of the cool things is my favorite setup right now is Spectre plus Bitcoin Core plus Coldcard, is that you can easily upgrade to multisig in the future. So you can have that setup, you can get used to it, you can be using your own full node, you can be controlling your own keys, and then you can slowly upgrade yourself to multisig as you get used to it. And when I mean get used to it, like I want you to like have it backed up. I want you to practice restoring it. I want you to do a spend. I want you to delete the wallet. I want you to restore, and then spend it again, like stuff like that, right? And get really, really comfortable with the whole process. And one of the things here is that you want to have, if you're going to have hardware, you want multiple of the hardware. So you can be playing around with them and wiping them and restoring them and going to fucking town. Because when shit hits the fan, when like a backup needs to be restored, or if there's an emergency situation, like that's not when you should be doing it for the first time. If you're doing it for the first time, at that point, you're fucked. You're going to be a fucking mess. You're not going to feel confident about it, and you're going to have tons of issues. So you want to get really comfortable with it. And up until like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, it just wasn't even that easy to use self-sovereign multisig, to do it yourself with your own full node. But now we're there. I think we're like pretty much there, like more or less like the next month or so, but we're like almost already there. So get comfortable with it, get used to it, and then you can slowly upgrade over time. And there's no rule, and you probably shouldn't have all of your Bitcoin in one storage method. So like separate them up, and have different threat models. And if something happens to one, at least you still have a stack somewhere else, or a couple stacks.
Awesome. There's so much knowledge here, Matt, and I feel a big need for me and plebs out there to actually watch your explainer videos. For those who just joined and didn't see, you went dark mode now. I like it. You're going even more incognito. There we go. No,
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. I guess
there we go.
There you go. It was magic, just like that. So for the people who didn't heard your the URL you mentioned in the beginning for the explainer videos, I want you to send me all the links of all your videos and everything, the podcast, so I can put it in the description below and have it in there within 30 minutes after we're done on this toxic happy hour. So I and all the viewers can enjoy that level of security knowledge. And yeah, it's not too bad with this. It's a bit Andy Warhol now with the.
Well, for what it's worth, first of all, I have no idea what's happening with the video. This is just, I guess, something that Linux people have to deal with. Is just that you have random ass errors that happen to you midstream. But hopefully you can still hear me properly. So all of our links are at all my links are at mattodell.com. If you go to mattodell.com, all the guides are there. The podcast, if you search Tales from the Crypt, our YouTube video guides are tftc.tv. But yeah, I will send them all to you so you can put them in afterwards. I don't know what's happening with the video.
Oh, don't worry about it. We can still see your silhouette, and we can hear you. That's the most important, right? So for this multisig, like you said a little bit about how, like the reason for having it, but where do you set it up?
What do you mean?
Where should I go to set up multisig now with three out of 5 or whatever? What do I use software? Is it do I need Bitcoin Core installed?
Yeah,
Greenwald,
I mean,
whatever?
so either way, my favorite setup is Bitcoin Core plus Spectre. So Spectre is like a interface that sits on top of Bitcoin Core. So you just run both on your computer, and it automatically pulls from Bitcoin Core like the necessary data. It automatically connects to your Bitcoin Core node, which is really cool. And then from there, it has this like cool little wizard where you can like pick which hardware you're adding for your hardware wallets, and it all runs through your own node, which is fucking fantastic. Our boy Michael Flaxman created his own guide for multisig using Spectre. So my guide for the Coldcard single sig using Spectre is usecoldcard.com. His is, which is also linked at usecoldcard.com, btcguide.github.io. And it's the same exact software stack, Core plus Spectre, but he adds a multi-sig element to it, and you can just set it up, and you go and you set it up, and you import each public key from each piece of hardware, each wallet, and then in the future, when it comes time to sign, you're going to need both the master public keys of everything. So it's an extra thing you need a backup, which is important to keep in mind. And he goes through that, and then you're going to need to sign from those hardware devices. So let's say I guess he uses a Kobo vault in his multisig. If you had a Kobo vault in your multisig, you would construct the transaction on your computer, you would pass it over to the Coldcard, you'd sign into your Coldcard with your PIN, you'd sign the transaction on your Coldcard, you'd take the micro SD card out, you'd put it in the Kobo vault, you sign with the Kobo vault. Actually, I think with his, you put it in, you sign with the Kobo vault on the computer, and then you broadcast it out to the world. So it's just one extra step in terms of just using a single sig, right? In single sig, you transfer the constructed transaction that's not signed to the Coldcard to sign it. In a multi-sig, you're going to have to transfer that partially signed transaction to all the devices to sign them in succession before you send them out. Obviously,
right.
If that makes sense.
I mean, goes without saying. Well, I can say that I, for one, will be watching this a couple of times afterwards to understand everything that you're saying. So one thing I think a lot of Bitcoiners are concerned about is, what if they're hit by a bus, or we all eventually come to an end. What do you recommend of securely handing over your Bitcoin stash to your kids without actually giving them access to it while you're still alive?
So I don't know if this was a T-ball question or not, but I actually built a tool. I built a tool for this last bull market because I would ride my skateboard to work in New York City, and like one day I was riding my skateboard to work. I was like, if I get hit by a car, like it's just over. All the Bitcoin's gone. It's just like we're never gonna find it. So I needed something for this exact reason, right? Like, what happens if something happens to me? But at the same time, your heirs are part of your threat model. So
exactly.
Yeah, so like if your heirs know how to access your coins, they can be pressured or kidnapped or something horrible, or they could just steal it. I mean, I hope you trust your heirs, but if you don't, like, they can just steal it. So I created this service called finalmessage.io, which works really well with multisig because you can put a single key in there and it'll automatically email it to them. If you stop renewing the final message, it'll just automatically email the message out. And then with that multi-sig key, they could have like a threshold. I think ultimately, like, there's no easy way here. New block is like you got to be creative about it. Like, no one can tell you how to do it, and I can't say how I have it planned out.
No, you shouldn't. Yeah, you don't want to,
because it becomes a risk. So you have to be creative about it. But there's plenty of ways you can do it, especially when you start moving in like lawyers and stuff into it. And multisig does definitely help here, where you have like a lawyer controls one key, your mother controls a key, your son controls a key, and then like all together the three keys are able to spend it, right? So multisig does help here. But you can do it in ways if you don't have multisig. So for instance, Coldcard has a feature where you can save an encrypted backup on an SD card. And if you save this encrypted backup on the SD card, it has a 12-word passphrase that you need, right? So you need two elements to access the Bitcoin. You need the encrypted SD card and you need the 12-word passphrase. You can separate those between your heirs. And then together, they need to come together to be able to spend your coins. Or you can give one of those secrets to a lawyer who is legally bound to not give it to your heir until you actually pass, right? So you can use the current legal system to your advantage. There's a lot of ways you can be creative here, even in single sig. You add a passphrase to that, all of a sudden, you can add another element. You add in instructions, and the instructions are with another person. So there's all different ways you can do it. You do want to be creative, but at the same time, you don't want to overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, if you overcomplicate it, what's going to happen is you're going to die, and all their coins are going to be gone forever. Like they're never going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, that's almost got to be first priority. But also, like what you said, don't have all your Bitcoin in one setup, because any one setup could be can be lost for some reason. There can be a risk. So splitting it out a little bit, so making sure that there is something. As I say, my end game target for Bitcoin by the end of this decade latest is that one Bitcoin will be worth $20 million of today's buying power. Of course, that can be discussed and disagreed with, but I think we all agree it's going to be worth a lot more than it is now. I mean, let's say you have 3 Bitcoin, if you store each of them in 3 different ways, it's still a lot of generational wealth for your heirs.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, obviously, you're better off if your heirs have some kind of Bitcoin understanding to begin with, right? Or if you have someone who can help them with that, right? Like you say, like if something happens to me, like go reach out to my buddy Anders and he'll help you do it, help you with the process. Which I'm, you know, who even knows, probably that for a lot of people, which is kind of morbid, but yeah, I mean, you gotta come up. The thing about Bitcoin is it's all about personal responsibility, right? So it can be overwhelming if you want it to be overwhelming, but at the end of the day, you just gotta make it. You gotta make it fucking happen. It's all on you.
Yeah. So this thing you say you built for helping transferring Bitcoin from one generation to the next once you're passed, which is one thing that is 100% certain. I mean, taxes and death are the two probably most certain things in life. You have explainer video on that as well on your website?
No, so if you just go to finalmessage.io, it's pretty self-explanatory. Full disclosure, so we charge $50 a year for that service. There's a free version on Google. If you just use it on Gmail, there's something on Gmail called deactivated account or something mode. And the idea is basically if you die and you don't sign into your Gmail account for 6 months, it'll automatically transfer the Google account to your heir with a custom message, and you can put a multisig key in there if you want.
Yeah.
What's nice is Final Message can be used as a redundancy there, like a privacy focused redundancy. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is that you do trust my service a little bit in terms of me actually sending it. So the contents are encrypted. And if you're using it properly with like a multi-sig key or a half a secret, I can't actually access your funds, which I don't want to be able to, or access your message. I don't want to know. Which is that. So that's important. So you're not really trusting me there. But you are trusting that we actually send the message when you die or if you stop responding.
Would it make sense?
There like a shit corner would come up with like a million different complexities to try and make it so you could reduce that trust. Really, the answer is you should have multiple fucking methods of passing that secret. If like it'd be nice, so what we offer is called a dead man switch. It's a very common concept. A lot of people have used dead man switches in the past. Snowden popularized it. Assange popularized it. Usually they run it themselves. Like a proper cypherpunk runs their own dead man switch on hardware they control. We run a hosted dead man switch. So ideally you're running multiple dead man switches and you don't have to trust either, any individual one because they all send it out. Or you have a lawyer who's supposed to pass the secret onto your heir, but also Final Message does. So just in case the lawyer decides to be a prick or gets stopped up and he's not allowed to legally pass off the secret, Final Message does, but you don't have to trust either one individually.
Right.
So once again, like everything else with Bitcoin and personal responsibility, there's a lot of fucking nuance here. So, but I personally think like I really like the idea of like simple tools that anyone can use and figure out how to use themselves the proper way, the way they want to use it. There's no proper way. Let me put it that way.
Right. Would it make sense for people both to use your service and, as you say, maybe the biggest potential attack on your service is the fact that what if you don't send out the message? Is it possible to both use your service and Google, and both of them are encrypted, and it doesn't matter, at least as long as one of them gets forwarded to your heirs, you're good?
With Google though, you would have to manually encrypt it. With ours, like it asks you for a password and encrypts it in the browser for you. But you would just have to manually encrypt it in Google. If you didn't care about privacy,
You should, though. You should.
Right. But if you didn't care about privacy, you don't even have to encrypt it if it's just multisig. If it's multisig and it's one key, Google can't use any, if anyone accesses that key that's in Google, no one can use it. No one can spend your coins. And same with final message. So it really works really well with multisig. And ultimately, really, if you want to talk about hand holding, these hosted multisig services like Unchained Capital and Casa work really well for heirs because you don't need to say like, oh, like have my friend Matt help you walk you through it, right? Like Casa is there for you and Unchained is there for you to actually walk you through it, walk the heirs through it. The negative there is that you are straight up trusting them with your privacy. You're 100% trusting them with every transaction you do, and your full balances, everything. You're 100% trusting them because you're using their node. With this, final message offers you a self-sovereign way of handling it.
Right. I like it. So listen, before so it's a lot of security and privacy knowledge, information, understanding that you're sharing. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time to share it with our great viewers. Yeah, cheers to that. And the next thing I would love to hear about is, apart from all of that, because you have all of that covered on your website, all the explainer videos, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, so overall, what excites you about Bitcoin, and how do you see Bitcoin changing the world and the conditions under which mankind live under? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about how Bitcoin will influence humanity?
So I just tried to flip some settings and I'm still in darkness. Bitcoin, I think, is better money. So I think that as better money, like obviously, humanity's better off with better money than with worse money.
Why?
Because I think our time on this planet is short, and people should have the ability to save up that value that their time has built up, without having to overthink it. Like this idea that you need to have like a financial planner and you have to have like a diversified basket of assets, and like you got to have a bunch of different stocks, and you have some bonds, and you have a savings account, like all these different, like you shouldn't have to do all that shit. Like if you could just save your time and save your value that you've accrued, like in like a very simple bearer asset that's just better money, then you can open up your mind to do all this other shit with your short time on earth than have to fucking deal with all that stress. So like I think there's clearly better. I think I overwhelmingly love Bitcoiners, and so I'm a little bit biased there, and I think that Bitcoiners are good people in general. So I think us getting very wealthy will probably be a net benefit to the world. I'm not like a blind believer in that, though. Like I think like a lot of us are just going to be more or less selfish about it and take care of our own. And that is what it is. You just can't. That's an unsolvable thing. So I'm not someone who thinks that like Bitcoin is just going to be like, it's just going to create like a utopia. But I do think it creates a better world. And I think that ultimately we have like a lot of issues right now, and it kind of creates like this escape hatch, this escape valve that we would almost undoubtedly go into a chaos mode for a time. Like a super uncertain period where things are shifting around. And I think ultimately humanity goes up and to the right. Like we just ultimately, I'm bullish on humanity long term, but I think Bitcoin provides like this kind of release valve, this escape valve that allows this next transition period to be less severe than it would be otherwise. Like hopefully, like it'll be like 1 or 2 generations rather than like 3 to 5 generations of like shittiness.
Yeah, I mean, personally, and this is what I learned from one of the macroeconomists in the space. I can't remember if it was Jeff Booth or Lynn Alden or Seyfedin Ammous, or yeah, maybe one of these other guys. But essentially, the good thing, the optimistic, positive thing for mankind right now is that as we are seeing fiat currency collapse, as we are live in real time right now, then the good solution is already, it's ready, it's there. Bitcoin is here, so we don't need to go through, hopefully, a 30s like depression, Great Depression, until mankind can move on. We already have Bitcoin as a money, and as if you look up money in the dictionary, it says that money can store value, as you're talking about, and that's what fiat currency can't. It's a built-in policy that fiat currency loses money. Somehow they magically manage to convince people that hey, it's good for you that your savings are worth less next year, which is mind-blowing. But and also, like what you talk about is that for to store value in the current world, you need to understand and have some knowledge of stocks and real estate, etc. Well, there you go. Matt is back in the house, in the pub.
I was listening though.
Yeah, no, I know. But I mean, if you weren't, it doesn't matter. I'm just rambling here.
Feels good to be back in the light.
Yeah, we like you in the light. We absolutely do. But right now, the unfortunate thing is for the people that may not have a lot of money, the bottom of society, they don't have the knowledge of really maybe investing in stocks, or have the funds to down pay for a house, a home. Storing their income is near impossible, and that's why the central banks, I believe, really are mainly hurting the bottom of society, because their communist style committee of 5-7 people deciding what the price of the most important commodity in the world, which is money, and the price of that is interest rate. When they sit and decide this and currently keep it artificially low, you see assets explode, because it's the only place that people can store value. And the problem is, well, it makes rich people richer because they own assets, and assets explode when their interest rate is zero or negative. And that creates the wealth divide, not capitalism. Capitalism got a bad word or bad reputation.
Not real. We don't have real capitalism. The only free market that I've ever seen in my life is like BitMEX and like all these fucking Bitcoin exchanges, right? Like these global Bitcoin exchanges. This is like a proper free market, which is so funny because we get like all this Bitfinex FUD that we constantly see. And I mean, if you talk about it, to be honest, like in a truly free market, there's no such thing as manipulation. Like that's the market at work. Like those are players in the market fucking around. Now you could have manipulation in terms of like an exchange giving you false price feeds and stuff, and that's just isolated to that individual exchange. If you have that individual exchange as a majority of the market, then that can become an issue. But fortunately, we don't have that issue with Bitcoin, and it's distributing as time goes on. Yeah, I think the current system is clearly designed to benefit the rich over the working class. I wouldn't even say just the poor. It's like the working class, the middle class, and it's just the asset owning rich that benefit from it. And we've seen that with both real estate and the stock market just going up and up and up. Davey Day Trader gets a lot of shit, rightfully so, I would say, but he was onto one thing with stonks only go up. And that's a recent phenomenon. And that's because is if you just debase the money and you bring interest rates low, like there's no incentive to keep your money in a savings account. And it's this hidden tax that's happening. So yeah, absolutely. Bitcoin fixes that. I just think it's important for people to realize that Bitcoin is a tool. I think Bitcoin is a massive improvement on the status quo, but it's ultimately come down to humans to actually use this tool for good. It just doesn't like fix it by itself.
Right. And agree. And one thing I like is when people are explaining that, right now a government can choose without asking permission of its citizens to fund a monstrous military and go to war simply by creating government bonds that the Federal Reserve or central bank in whatever country of your choosing, they buy it up, and the government has unlimited funds. Basically, what the price paid is paid by the citizens that have their savings diluted. And a lot of people are saying, and I agree to this, that if we have Bitcoin as a standard of money, which I believe will happen, they can't just go out and dilute your savings and steal value of your savings to go to war. They need to ask your permission. They need to raise those taxes to fund military activities.
Or war bonds.
War
where they
bonds.
have specific war bonds. I mean, if you look at, like, I agree with that premise. I mean, just in general, government spending is super easy because the meme is they can just print the money. But if you look at the two largest wars we've had as a society, as a humanity, is World War I and World War II, and those were pre this, and it was because they were able to raise war bonds and taxes. So it won't completely eliminate wars, but they will have to at least be more creative about it. They can't just like lazy war, like they're going to have to like hit us with all the propaganda and get us to buy in as a society and
weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly. They're going to have to get like a proper buy-in from society. They can't just do things. Right. So there is more of a check, but I would be hesitant to say like Bitcoin stops wars. And I wouldn't be surprised, like the next generation of wars are going to be fought over Bitcoin. Like that's what it's going to be fought over. But it reduces like this, it adds another check. It's like a check and balance, right?
Right. Absolutely. I think, so my main concern over security on Bitcoin is, I mean, if people go to your website, watch the explainer videos, you can get a very high level of security. What I'm my worst case scenario, because I'm a paranoid type of person who creates high level of security just because I'm paranoid. Like I am one of the few people in Denmark where everyone have bikes to commute. I'm one of the few people that never had a bike stolen, and most people have that bike stolen at least 3 times, before the age of 2021. I never had a bike stolen because I'm very concerned on security. But what I'm thinking in terms of Bitcoin, and I think we have a new block right there. How many blocks did we have during this
the third one or the fourth one?
Fourth one in
Let's
just
see in the
60
comments.
minutes.
Does anyone know?
Sorry?
No, I was just asking the listeners in the comments if anyone knew. I think it was 3. I think it was 3.
Right. It probably was 17,614. So let me throw a few words on Pablo.hodl, which unfortunately can't be here today. He is at an undisclosed, what's it called, fun park with family. He's got family members to celebrate today. Awesome. That's because I have a lot of questions in the chat about where is Puppy. I'm watching your clock behind you saying 17,614, which is the price that Pablo made his first Bitcoin purchase at. So he is, breaking even on the initial purchase, but like a boss, he's been dollar cost averaging, all the way down to $3,120. So, there's another blog that's they're listening to. What's that?
I switched it to sats per dollar.
Sats per dollar. It's
under 6,000 sats per dollar now.
It's so low. It's close to record low.
There you go.
But because the dollar cost average, which is a great way to accumulate Bitcoin, I have a link for that as well in the show notes below on YouTube. Then he's significantly up now because he lowered his price. So that is a less risky way by spreading your purchase out over time instead of going all in. Personally, I'm an all-in type of guy, so that's who I am. But since Poppy is brought up in the chat also, I just want to I gotta come clean here. The reason Popload is not here is because we want to be able to invite Matt back and say, hey, listen, we got to do one with Poplord. he's not here, so you gotta come on again. That's the real reason. Like, he wanted to come, but we want to somehow trick Matt Odell here to come back a second time. How are we succeeding on that?
Well, I'm happy to. I'm
awesome.
Happy to come back whenever. Hopefully at a new all-time high.
Well, you got time next week, or?
Well, no, next week is American Thanksgiving.
The whole week?
I'm down for the week after. Let's do the week after.
All right. We earned a DM on Twitter. You say anytime that is good for you, Monday early morning to Friday late night. I'm available. I'm flexible. We just gotta find a time where Pablo is outside of his hamster wheel, so he can join. That's the important thing here. But yeah, Pablo, I know you're watching live. You could have been here, but the scam is working. Matt Odell will be back.
So yes, I agree. So we, I have a podcast, Tales from the Crypt, a rabbit hole recap. We don't do live streams, so I love that you have the comments like in line that we can see people saying the comments. So we have a couple questions here that I would like to answer before we close up. So the first thing is, what's the best hardware wallet? I mean, I've just been a straight up Coldcard shill this whole fucking time. So I assume you know that, coldcardwallet.com. It's my favorite hardware wallet. Not sponsored content. I pay him. He should pay me.
That's what we do.
Reach out to Adolfo, tell him to pay me. What?
That's what we do here on the show. We have a lot of product placement, and we pay for whatever goods that we consume. I am yet to make like $1 from this, but I do it because I love it.
There you go. Bitcoin is worth it. Let's see. What's the next thing? What do I think about lending your Bitcoin to BlockFi or lending to receive interest? I think that's a horrible fucking idea. I think that the interest is not worth it. I think that they lend it to short sellers. That's the whole business model. And I just
that gives you cheap Bitcoin though. Short sellers help you stack more sats.
Yeah, but the problem is so like our boy Bitcoin Tina talks about this a lot. Like rip your nads off green candles. So like the idea is that like as a Bitcoiner, I think we all prescribe to the possibility that at any point we can wake up in the morning and like we're up $5,000 or $10,000. If you're lending out on BlockFi, that could be a major negative because that happens. You wake up and the short sellers get fucking brutalized, right? Because
they get stopped out. They get stopped.
But who knows? Like you have to trust BlockFi there, right? You have to trust them that they were actually doing good risk management. So if they get blown out and BlockFi goes insolvent, then not your keys, not your coins. Like that's completely custodial. You have no ability to see there. On top of that is custodial privacy. So you're trusting them with your privacy. They have been compromised in the past. And then afterwards, they hit you with more KYC to withdraw. So I just don't think it's worth the 6%. I think in general, don't be fucking cute. Like there's no, we have a money here that's being adopted for the first time that very few people have realized yet. And you have the ability to dollar cost average into this thing. Very simple. Just stack sats just constantly and just think long term. And as adoption increases, the price should go up. Why the fuck are you being cute? Just fucking buy the Bitcoin and store your keys and get comfortable with it and learn it. And don't fuck around with any of these custodial services, interest lending products. Just in general, just don't fuck around with it. It's just not worth it. You're going to regret it. You're going to learn the hard way. You're going to get burned. If you want to do it, you'll get burned. But I do not recommend it. Another block. Here we go.
Another block. I think my favorite feature of the block clock is the fact that it has this flashing light going out the back when you got on your block.
Yeah, so you can change the color. You can pick green, white, orange, or red, and I have it on white.
Right. What's wrong with orange? Not as
well, let's switch it.
visible.
I'll switch it to orange. We'll see for the next one. Did it go? Oh, I guess it has to. We have to hope that a block comes
We need a new block.
Okay,
I think
it's set.
Sure. Go ahead.
I mean, this is my favorite question. My favorite, one of my my favorite topics.
Before you continue, Matt, do you have anything left on your UTXOs?
I have very little, but I can cheers you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
In Denmark, if you say cheers and you don't have anything in your glass, it means you buy a round. So you now owe me a round. Thank you.
I had a
look
little
forward
bit.
to the meeting here.
I tasted it, but I'm now I'm out.
Okay.
That was the last of my UTXOs. So this guy, Plan Marcus, asked about butt wallet, still the best for traveling. Bitcoin fixes sticking things up your butt. You don't have to stick things up to your butt to smuggle them anymore. Like you can just be creative about it. There's no need to do that. Okay. And we talked about multisig earlier, where you have multiple secrets that are needed to construct to spend your Bitcoin. And we talked about the way you can do the encrypted backup on the Coldcard, where you have two secrets, where you have the passphrase plus the encrypted backup. So when you travel, you can travel in a way that you only take one of the secrets, one of the two secrets, and the other secret could be in the cloud. You know, they can be on a USB drive separate. Like, be creative about it. Like, it's very hard to there's just like so many ways you can do it without sticking anything up your butt. So just like, don't do that. But I mean, if you want to, you can. It's Bitcoin. If you do, the open dime is rumored. The reason the open dime has rounded edges is for that reason. So if you wish to do it, the open dime isn't like the worst option. It's pretty.
It's not the biggest USB.
No, it's actually really small.
Yeah, it's a chosen prison wallet. I hear
exactly.
It's a prison wallet of choice for people.
And Bitcoiners are obsessed with just, you know, putting Bitcoin up their butt, but you just don't have to do it. Bitcoin, this is one thing that Bitcoin definitely fixes. You do not have to put it up your butt. Taking it back out now. Thank you, Plan Marcus.
Hey, Plan Marcus, you didn't find the red balloon in the chat this time. Can you please find? So Plan Marcus has been finding the red balloon in the chat. I really want to share that with Matt. So Plan Marcus, step it up, find that red balloon, be the first one. Matt, I think there's another great question here. I know you're a busy guy, so you know you drop the bomb when you have to go. We enjoyed every single second that you shared with us. But I think there's a really good question here. What is the, like, if you were to point to the biggest threat for BTC, Bitcoin in general, what do you think it is? Personally, I don't find a big threat to Bitcoin currently, but your opinion matters more. So let's hear it from Mr. Odell.
So I mean, my biggest concern is privacy, user privacy, and I've been a fucking broken record about it. If anyone's been paying attention, I mean, the concern is I think is pretty simple. I think the main value prop of something like Bitcoin is that no individual government can control it, right? And if an individual government can control it, then then we're back on the fiat system. We're back on the system where like everyone's trusting the U.S. government, because ultimately, if one government can control it, it's the most powerful government, right? And that's just the system we're currently on. So I think we're nearing the kind of point where they can't break the system, but they can cause harm to individual users. And that's mostly because of twofold. First of all, it's hard to use Bitcoin privately. And second of all the on-ramps are heavily KYC'd. Well, all the convenient on-ramps are heavily KYC'd. KYC is know your customer regulation. So that's like when you sign up to like a Cash App or a Swan or something, or a Kraken, where they make you put your driver's license and your home address and your bank account information and all this stuff. So they know who you are and they know how much Bitcoin you own. So presumably, if a government decided that they wanted to ban self-custody or ban certain transaction types, they know a lot about users. So I think it's important to normalize privacy practices. I think it's important to normalize buying without KYC, normalize not having KYC in your services. Like I think like the only kind of reasonable, exception for KYC is on your on-ramp when you're coming into Bitcoin, for the convenience factor. I mean, you can go through BISC or HODL without KYC, which is ideal. It's better strictly from a privacy perspective and a security perspective because it ties in together. But that goes back to the BlockFi thing. It's like once you're in the system, like you shouldn't be using KYC services. And that's just because it adds these additional privacy risks on top of it. So I think the biggest concern is state level attacks. And I think when you look at a state level attack, you look at it from the privacy perspective, which is if the listeners are familiar with how they dealt with BitTorrent, which was like not very effective, to be clear. Like
wait, I have a question for you afterwards, but please go ahead. I want to hear about BitTorrent.
The BitTorrent system is still working as designed. A lot of people use torrents. But the way they combated it was they basically like made an example of a few people and then the majority of people complied, right? Like they went after like a 14-year-old girl and like a 16-year-old boy and they like hit them with like huge, like insane.
Another block. Woo! That was right, man.
And then everyone complies. Everyone just listens, right? And that's like how they would do it with Bitcoin. They would like make you comply. They would catch a couple people lying, and then the overwhelming majority of people would just comply. And I don't think that's really a risk to Bitcoin, but I think like it could be painful for actual Bitcoiners. And hopefully like our country doesn't do that. And if America doesn't do it, then we should be good regardless. And other systems are more vulnerable to it. Like Ethereum, if the United States government wanted to just put KYC on that whole chain, they could. So it's kind of like a bellwether for us. Like we can watch and see if something happens there first. But yeah, those are my quick thoughts on that.
Excellent. Matt, I do have a question. Well, first, before my two questions, if I remember them, I'm so happy Plan Marcus happened to find the red balloon. Hey, look, a balloon there. Thumbs up and respect and hats off to you, Plan Marcus, for finding the balloon. I think it's like the 4th or 5th episode in a row. Irvin is saying, great answer, Matt. Thanks, mate. So I have a question for you, Matt. I know, let me know when you got to run. You just hit that off button, but close your browser window, whatever. But I'm really keeping you in here because we are enjoying the knowledge from you. So running your own node, what kind of privacy risk are you putting yourself at? Because these are the questions that I have. Like if I put up my own node here in my living room, who can watch what's going on that? And, what's my privacy risk?
So it's actually the opposite. I mean, most people don't use their own node. The overwhelming majority of Bitcoiners aren't using their own node. When you interact with the Bitcoin network, you have to use a node to interact with the Bitcoin network. If you don't use your own node, then you're trusting someone else's node with two things. You're trusting that node with both enforcing the rules that the network believes in, the most famous one being 21 million Bitcoin. And you're also trusting that node with your privacy. So the most popular situation is, let's say you're using Blue Wallet or Ledger, right? You're trusting Blue Wallet and Ledger with your private information. You're trusting their servers. Ledger Live, if you use Ledger Live, you're trusting Ledger's servers with all of your transaction data.
Whatever that is.
The number one, and your balances, right? Like how much Bitcoin you own. And did they know your name? Maybe not necessarily, but they know your IP address, which is like
Bad
your
enough.
internet address, which the right actor, I mean, if you're a non-sophisticated actor, you know the location. But if you're a sophisticated actor, you can figure out the name because every person has basically a fixed IP address. It's attached to their billing address, their internet provider. Okay. So if you're a sophisticated actor, you can get a name and address and everything from that IP address. And then you can tie that to all your balances, all your transactions and stuff. So the first step that you want to take as a Bitcoiner to try and reclaim some privacy and use it more privately and use it more securely is to use your own node. Now, if you run your own node, your internet provider and presumably your government and anyone who's watching can know that you're running a Bitcoin node. If you run your Bitcoin node through Tor, which I suggest, then those people can't know that, but they know you're running Tor. They don't know what you're running behind Tor, but they know you're running Tor. They can guess that you're probably running a Bitcoin node behind Tor based on the traffic patterns, like how much traffic is coming through. They can probably guess, but it definitely improves your situation. I think ultimately, the ideal is that we don't want our own governments coming against us. Like if your own government is coming against you about Bitcoin usage, you have to take way, 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 way more precautions.
Don't mess with the mafia. Do not mess with the mafia.
In America, if you're fine with your government knowing that you're interested in Bitcoin, but not how much Bitcoin you have, you're reasonably secure just running your own Bitcoin node. You run Bitcoin Core with Spectre and you just use it with your hardware wallet, or you use one of these dedicated boxes, right? Like Umbrel, Raspberry Blitz, MyNode, Ronin Dojo, Nodl if you want a pre-built. And you're fine. You're not leaking transaction data. You're leaking that you use Bitcoin, which can be bad, and you should be aware of that. But it's just something to keep in mind.
Right.
It's a very deep rabbit hole. Bitcoin internet privacy is very fucking difficult.
It is.
If you talk to any internet privacy person, they'll tell you just don't use the internet. Like that's the answer. That's the real answer. Like don't use a cell phone.
Go analog, get some shotguns, get a sniper, go get 10 acres of land, make your own food, and don't let anyone trespass on your freaking property.
But I don't want people to be overwhelmed either. Like all these little things you do to improve help your situation, helps everyone else's situation. You want to do these little improvements.
Right. Absolutely. Matt, I have a question from Plan Marcus, which I'm bringing up because he did find the red balloon. So I really feel that he is entitled to a question here. I want to focus on that. Do you have a favorite meme in Bitcoin? You can take a little time to think about it because it's important we get it right. What's your favorite meme in Bitcoin?
I think my favorite meme goes back to like the early days where like on Reddit and stuff, you'd see an article, any article, just about anything random, pig populations increase in Buenos Aires or something. And then underneath in a comment would be like, this is good for Bitcoin. Just some random ass fucking things. Just like, this is good for Bitcoin. And then like my second favorite meme is like a bear market meme, which is just like you're sitting with your buddy. And I don't even know if this is like a internet meme. And this is just a meme of my life. It's like in a bear market, you're like sitting with your buddy. It's like March 12th. You're down, the price dropped half and you haven't sold shit, but you're just in 8 hours. And you look at him and you just go,
in 8 hours.
You look at him, you just go, what if we're wrong? Like, what if it's just not better money? What if we just go to zero here? What if Bitfinex is right? I love that meme. I love that idea. It's just like, well, what if we're wrong?
Awesome. Thank you. So it's Tuesday currently. Am I right or am I wrong? It's Tuesday, right? So now the time is 5:18 p.m. in New York, where you may or may not be present. What is your plans for your Tuesday evening in New York? Are you in Manhattan or?
No. I used to be in Manhattan. I'm moving around right now. We're in flux. No, I mean, I'm going to make some steak. That's the plan. I mean, in 2 hours. But yeah. I enjoyed this. This was good. What's your plan for the rest of your day?
Well, I would say that you setting the tone on your UTXO consolidation, I'm not sure if I have many plans for the rest of the day, to be quite honest. I appreciate that, Matt. I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day.
Absolutely.
And definitely was it 2 weeks from now that you'll be introduced to Poppy that right now is watching live and just, running the scam together with me, making sure you appear a second time.
I love it.
But yeah, my plans are, I would say, probably non-existent. I may be checking out my 2 apps that are tracking the price of Bitcoin and giving me, cheers when we're up 3% or alarm bells when we're down 3%. I'm just having fun with those, especially these days, I would say. Yeah, and now I lost track of my train of thought, but it's not the first on the Toxic Happy Hour. I gotta tell you.
First of all, I love the concept of this. Thank you for having me. This is a good time. I do also look forward to meeting you. Mr. Android, we skipped over his question. He asked, there's a lot of options on the Coldcard website. Which bundle should I go for? I mean, you could just get like one Coldcard if you want to like cheap out. But I think my favorite bundle is the backup bundle where you get 2 Coldcards. You get 2 SD cards, you get that nice steel plate that you can back up onto, and you get the power only cable. And then I would just add a cold power adapter on top of that, which looks like it comes up to 360. The nice thing there, if you have 2 cold cards, is one acts as a backup for the other, and you don't have to like fuck around with like trying to like when it comes time to restore, you just have one ready to go that's there and usable, and you can just restore to it while you have your funds on the other one. You don't have to worry about it. So you get comfortable with the backup and restore process, and you have a full backup ready to go just to use.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. I don't want to steal more of your time so you're scared for that second appearance that we kind of nailed down a couple of weeks from now, whenever that may be. But do you have any final words? Please plug your URL where people can go get explainer videos. And not everyone was here in the beginning or were here in the beginning. I don't know. English is my second language. So you kind of find a few faults in there. But let's get all the plugs because your stuff is gold, man.
So I have
Bitcoin.
My personal website's mattodell.com. You have all my links are there. My link to my Keybase is there, which is the easiest way to message me. If you have any questions, you want to hit me up, I'll happily answer your questions over there. You can also DM me on Twitter, but I prefer if you go on Keybase. My Twitter is Matt_Odell.
It's in the description.
Podcast. Perfect. It's in the description. We have a podcast, Tales from the Crypt. If you just search that in your podcast app, it's there. And primarily my part in that is our weekly recap series where every week we talk about all the top things in Bitcoin. And just in general, just like, don't be cute. Don't be cute. Just stay humble, stack sats, and just keep accumulating Bitcoin and think long-term.
Long-term thinking. That's Adam Meister pluck, I guess, or whatever it's called right there. Again, my language skills do kind of let me down there. But Matt, really, I really appreciate you coming on. I do have a final question before I let you go. Is this the first podcast, YouTube, whatever, where you ended your UTXOs or not? I'm just curious because you're out. You're done.
I ran out of, yeah, I mean, well, because it's Linux, I have to use a wired headset.
That's not what I'm talking about, Matt. I'm talking about the fact that you.
No, I'm saying like I have whiskey in the other room, but yeah, this is the first time I've run out of alcohol mid episode where I don't have it in my hands. Like I can't reach it. I underestimated how much I was gonna consume UTXOs.
Never underestimate the toxic happy hour. It's contagious. It's bad for you. You still learn a lot, but it's with the kind of guests we have here in the space, that especially the chat. Once again, I want to highlight that Plan Marcus found the red balloon. Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and especially I'm looking forward to next time, man.
Cheers. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. So everyone out there, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your participation in the chat. See you next time. Couple of weeks, Matt is back. So subscribe to this channel, I guess, right?